The alien soldiers pushed me down, then froze at the ancient symbol on my neck. Ethan opened his eyes, feeling a strange weight in his chest. The sky above him was an unfamiliar color, a deep purple that stretched far beyond the horizon. The air felt different, thick but breathable. He didn't know where he was or how he had gotten there, but his instincts screamed at him that something was wrong. He stood up slowly, his legs shaky from what seemed like a fall. His clothes were the same, his old jeans and t-shirt, but they didn't feel like they belonged in this strange place. The ground beneath him was soft, almost spongy, and strange, tall trees towered overhead, their leaves glowing faintly in the dim light. The air smelled faintly of something sweet, almost like fruit, but there was no sign of life, no animals, no people. Ethan's heart started to race. This was not Earth. He didn't remember how he'd gotten here. One minute he had been walking down the street in his city, the next he was here. His mind was racing, but there was nothing he could do. The only thing that felt real was the cool metal pendant that hung from his neck, the one his grandfather had given him before he passed away. It was shaped like a spiral, with intricate markings etched into its surface. Ethan had worn it every day for as long as he could remember, never really knowing what it meant. Suddenly there was a sound, footsteps approaching from behind. Ethan spun around, his pulse quickening. 3 tall figures emerged from the dense trees. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Their bodies were covered in shimmering silver armor that seemed to ripple in the light, reflecting the strange surroundings. Their heads were large and hairless, with elongated eyes that glowed faintly green. They moved with a smooth, almost predatory grace, their weapons drawn, long, slender rifles that hummed with a strange energy. Ethan didn't know what to do. He backed up, his heart pounding in his chest. The aliens, because they had to be aliens, stopped a few feet away, their eyes fixed on him. One of them, the leader perhaps, stepped forward. His face was expressionless, but the tension in the air was thick. He raised his weapon slightly, and Ethan froze. "Who are you?" the leader asked in perfect English, though his voice was deep and cold, echoing in the strange quiet. Ethan's throat was dry. I don't know, I just woke up here. Please, I don't mean any harm." The alien glanced at the others, his eyes narrowing. "A human," he said quietly, as if speaking to himself. "We've never encountered one like you before." Ethan had no idea what he meant by that, but his words were enough to make his stomach turn. There was something in the way the alien said human, something that made it sound almost judgmental. Before Ethan could say anything more, the leader raised his hand. Without warning, the soldiers surged forward, surrounding him in an instant. One of them grabbed him by the arm, forcing him to the ground. He felt the sharp pressure of the soldier's hand on his shoulder, pinning him down. The other soldiers aimed their weapons at him, their eyes scanning him like they were evaluating a threat. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. "Please, I didn't do anything," he shouted, struggling beneath the soldier's grip. He kicked his legs, but it was no use. The alien was too strong. The leader's voice came again, cold and firm. "What is this? What are you wearing?" Ethan looked down at the pendant around his neck. The symbol on it, a twisting spiral of ancient lines, had never seemed so important. He had always wondered what it meant, but it didn't matter now. The aliens were focused on it. The leader stepped closer, his eyes narrowing at the glowing pendant. "What is this symbol?" the leader demanded, his voice hardening. "Tell us." Ethan could barely breathe. I don't know, it was my grandfather's," he stammered. "He gave it to me before he died." The leader stepped back, his expression shifting. For a moment the soldiers hesitated, their weapons still pointed at Ethan, but they seemed to be waiting for something. The leader's eyes flicked to the others, and there was a strange tension in the air. Ethan could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. It was as though the aliens were no longer focused on him. No, they were focused on the symbol. The leader stepped back again, and for the first time his expression changed. There was a flicker of recognition, a mix of confusion and disbelief. The soldiers around Ethan seemed frozen in place. They didn't move, didn't make a sound. It was as though they had all just stopped. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. What was happening? Why had they stopped? He could see the leader's mouth moving, but no words came out, as if he were trying to process what was in front of him. The symbol, the pendant, whatever it was, it had a power over these aliens. The leader reached out slowly, his eyes fixed on the pendant. His fingers hovered just above it, trembling slightly. "This symbol," he muttered, as though speaking to himself. "This can't be. How is it possible?" Ethan was too scared to move. He didn't understand what was happening, but it was clear that whatever this symbol was, it meant something important to these alien soldiers. The fear in the leader's eyes was unmistakable. Ethan felt the pressure on his shoulders loosen as the soldier holding him down backed away. The others did the same, lowering their weapons. For a moment there was silence. The leader turned to the others, speaking in a language Ethan couldn't understand, but the tone was urgent. The soldiers didn't respond, instead continuing to stare at the pendant with wide, almost terrified eyes. "Get up," the leader finally said, his voice no longer cold but tinged with respect. "You are not a threat." Ethan didn't know what was happening, but he quickly scrambled to his feet, still holding the pendant tightly in his hand. His mind was racing. What was the meaning of this symbol? Why had these aliens stopped when they saw it? He didn't know, but it was clear that his life had just changed. Everything he knew, everything he thought was real, was suddenly thrown into doubt. "Come with us," the leader said, his tone now more commanding than before. "We must speak. There is much you do not understand." Ethan hesitated for a moment, still unsure whether this was a trap. But as the leader turned and motioned for him to follow, something deep inside Ethan told him that this was the only chance he had to find answers. With a deep breath, he followed the aliens, his mind racing with questions. Who were these creatures? What did the symbol mean? And what had just happened to make them stop everything? The answers, Ethan knew, lay ahead. But for now, all he could do was follow and hope he would survive long enough to find out the truth. Ethan followed the alien soldiers through the strange forest, his mind still racing. The world around him was unlike anything he had ever seen. The trees were tall, with trunks that seemed to shimmer as if they were made of crystal. The ground was soft, almost springy, and every step felt like walking on a cushion. The air was thick with a sweet scent, almost like flowers, but there was an unnatural calm to everything. No birds, no animals, just silence. The soldiers moved with military precision, their eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. Ethan couldn't help but feel like they were watching him too, studying his every move. He had no idea where they were taking him, but he had no choice but to follow. The leader, the one who had spoken to him earlier, was at the front, walking briskly with a determined expression on his face. The other two soldiers flanked Ethan, their weapons never far from sight. He didn't dare ask where they were going, not yet. The fear of what might happen if he spoke out was still too fresh, but he couldn't stop thinking about the symbol on his neck. The way the leader had reacted to it, the way the soldiers had frozen at its touch. There was something important about it, something that these aliens feared or perhaps revered. His fingers instinctively touched the pendant, feeling the cool metal against his skin. It had always been a mystery to him. His grandfather had given it to him when he was just a child, telling him that it was a family heirloom, but never explaining its true meaning. Now, it felt like the most important thing in the universe, something that these alien soldiers couldn't ignore. They walked for what felt like hours, though Ethan had no way of knowing how long. The strange landscape never seemed to change. The sky above them remained that unnatural purple hue, and the air stayed thick and heavy, making every breath feel a little harder than the last. The only sound was the soft hum of the soldiers' movements, their boots barely making a sound as they walked through the soft ground. Finally, they arrived at a large structure. It was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen, tall, sleek, and metallic, with sharp angles and curves that seemed to defy gravity. The surface of the building was smooth, reflective, like liquid metal. There were no windows, no doors that he could see, just a massive wall of shimmering metal that seemed to pulse with a faint light. The leader stopped in front of the structure, turning to face Ethan. His eyes were intense, but there was something almost respectful in his gaze now. The soldiers around Ethan stood still, their weapons still trained on him, but there was no longer the immediate hostility that had been present earlier. "You will enter with us," the leader said, his voice calm but firm. "There are things you must learn, things that you cannot understand yet, but you will." Ethan didn't know what to say. His mind was still spinning from everything that had happened so far. He had been dragged through a strange world by aliens who seemed to know more about him than he did. And now they were telling him that he had to learn something. But learn what? And why was it so important? The leader motioned for him to follow. Without a word, the soldiers stepped aside, allowing Ethan to approach the massive metallic structure. As he took his first step toward it, something strange happened. The surface of the building shifted, forming a doorway, though Ethan hadn't seen it open. It was as if the metal itself was alive, reacting to the presence of the soldiers. Ethan hesitated for just a moment before walking through the doorway. Inside, the building was even stranger. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, glowing faintly in the dim light. The air inside felt cooler, and there was a soft humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The floor beneath him was smooth, yet it had an odd texture, almost like it was breathing. They moved deeper into the building, the leader guiding the way. The further they went, the more Ethan began to feel a strange pull, like the air itself was charged with energy. It was as if something inside the building was calling to him, something that he couldn't explain. At the end of the hallway, they reached a large chamber. In the center of the room was a massive, circular platform, surrounded by strange, glowing symbols that Ethan couldn't understand. The symbols pulsed in time with the soft, humming sound that filled the air. On the far side of the room, there was a raised platform with an alien figure standing there. It was different from the soldiers, taller and more regal in appearance, with a flowing cloak made of some material that shimmered like the night sky. The figure stepped forward, its eyes fixed on Ethan. There was a sense of power around it, a presence that made Ethan's heart race. This alien was unlike any he had seen before. Its features were sharper, more defined, and its skin seemed to shimmer with a faint, ethereal glow. The leader stepped forward, bowing slightly before the figure. "This is the human," he said, his voice reverent. "The one from the prophecy." The figure's eyes narrowed as it looked at Ethan, and for a moment the room fell silent. Ethan could feel the weight of its gaze like it was searching deep inside him. He took a step back, his fingers still clutching the pendant. He didn't know what was going on, but he knew one thing for sure. These aliens believed he was something important. "Who are you?" Ethan finally asked, his voice shaky. "What's going on here? Why did you bring me here?" The figure's voice was deep and resonant, like the sound of thunder in the distance. "You are the one we have been waiting for," it said, its tone both solemn and powerful. "The symbol you wear is more than just a piece of jewelry. It is the key to our future." Ethan shook his head, confusion flooding his mind. "I don't understand. I'm just a regular guy. I don't know anything about any prophecy." The figure's eyes softened just slightly as if it were considering Ethan's words. "You are not just a regular human. You are the one who will either save or destroy us all. The choice is yours." Ethan felt his knees weaken, his mind spinning. What was this figure talking about? How could he possibly be the key to their future? He had no power, no knowledge. He was just a man from Earth thrown into this alien world with no idea why or how. "The symbol you wear," the figure continued, "is not just a symbol. It is the key to unlocking the greatest power the galaxy has ever known. It is a power that can end the war we have been fighting for centuries. But it is also a power that can destroy us all if it falls into the wrong hands." Ethan felt a cold chill run down his spine. "I don't want to destroy anything. I just want to go home." The figure's gaze softened just a little, but there was no mistaking the gravity of its words. "Home is no longer an option for you. You are part of this now, whether you wish it or not. The symbol you wear has chosen you." Ethan stared at the figure, his heart racing. This was too much to take in. His world had just been turned upside down, and now he was caught in a struggle far bigger than anything he could understand. And the worst part was he didn't know if he was ready for it. The figure raised its hand, and the room seemed to vibrate with power. "You will learn. The choice will come soon enough, but for now, rest. We have much to prepare." Ethan had no idea what to expect, but as the alien figure turned and disappeared into the shadows, he felt the weight of the symbol on his neck heavier than ever before. It was clear that his life had changed forever. And whether he liked it or not, he was part of something much larger than himself. The soldiers motioned for him to follow once more. This time, Ethan didn't resist. There was nothing left for him to do but go along and try to figure out what was happening. As he followed the aliens through the dark halls, he couldn't help but wonder, what had he gotten himself into? And was he strong enough to survive it? Ethan couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the alien figure's glowing eyes staring at him, his words echoing in his mind. "You are the one who will either save or destroy us all." How could this be true? He was just a regular guy from Earth, not a hero, not a savior. What could he possibly do with that kind of power? He sat up on the soft bed they had given him, his fingers once again tracing the symbol around his neck. The pendant felt heavier now, like it was pulling him toward something, toward a destiny he didn't understand. He was surrounded by alien technology, strange devices that hummed softly in the corners of the room. They didn't look like anything Ethan had ever seen on Earth. There were no buttons, no screens. Everything seemed to respond to some invisible force. It was as though the whole building was alive. The door slid open without a sound, and the leader of the soldiers stepped inside. Ethan looked up, his stomach tightening. He still didn't trust these aliens, but at least this one had been kind enough to speak to him directly. "Come with me," the leader said, his voice calm but firm. Ethan nodded, though he had no idea what would happen next. He stood and followed the leader down the hallway, trying not to show how nervous he was. They passed several other rooms, each one containing strange equipment, glowing symbols, and alien creatures that looked almost human, though their eyes were different, always glowing with that strange, otherworldly light. The leader led him into a large room at the end of the corridor. The walls were covered with more glowing symbols, and in the center of the room was a massive stone pedestal, surrounded by alien machinery. Ethan's heart began to race as he stepped closer, his eyes drawn to the pedestal. There, resting on top of the stone, was an ancient-looking book. The cover was dark, the edges worn with age, but there was no mistaking the shape. It was a book of knowledge, something important. The leader turned to face him, his expression serious. "This is what you came here for." Ethan didn't understand. "What do you mean? I came here by accident. I don't know why I'm even here." The leader didn't respond at first. He just watched Ethan, his eyes hard and unreadable. Finally, he spoke again. "You are the one who will unlock the secrets of the past. The symbol you wear is not just a key. It is a guide. This book contains the knowledge of our ancestors, the ones who built the great machines that powered our civilization. But they also created a weapon so powerful that it could destroy everything. The key to this weapon lies within you." Ethan took a step back, his mind spinning. "What weapon? Why would I have anything to do with it?" The leader's voice softened, but his words were no less serious. "The weapon was never meant to be used. It was hidden away, locked in the deepest corners of the galaxy. But the symbol you wear, the one that has been passed down through generations, is the key to finding it. And you, Ethan, are the one who will decide whether it is used for good or evil." Ethan shook his head, his thoughts racing. "I didn't ask for this. I don't want any part of it." The leader's eyes softened just slightly, though his expression remained stern. "You have no choice. The power inside you is not something that can be ignored. You were chosen long before you even knew of this place. The symbol has guided many before you, but none were ready. You are different." Ethan could feel his pulse quicken, his mind unable to process everything the leader had just said. How could he be the one? He was just a man who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. He had no special abilities, no powers. He didn't even know what the symbol meant. The leader continued. "The weapon must never fall into the wrong hands. There are those who will do anything to use it to control it. If it is awakened, it will bring destruction unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen." Ethan stepped closer to the pedestal, his eyes still fixed on the book. "How do I even begin to understand any of this?" The leader looked at him, his expression almost sad. "That is why you are here. You must learn. You must unlock the knowledge within you, the knowledge of the ancients. Only then will you understand how to use the power of the symbol and the weapon. But be warned, this knowledge comes with a great price." Ethan stared at the book, his mind swirling with questions and doubts. "I don't know if I can do this," he muttered. "You have no choice," the leader replied quietly. "But you are not alone. There are others who will help you. You just need to trust them." Ethan turned his gaze back to the leader, confusion clouding his thoughts. "Who are these others?" The leader stepped closer. "We are the last remnants of the ones who created the symbol, the ones who have been waiting for someone like you to come along. But there are others, more powerful, more dangerous, who want the power for themselves. You must stay hidden, stay out of their reach. If they find you, it will be too late." Ethan swallowed hard. His mind was a storm of questions and fears. How could he possibly be part of something this big? He wasn't a hero, he wasn't a warrior. He was just a man, thrust into something he didn't understand. And yet the weight of the pendant around his neck seemed to pull him in, like it was calling him to something greater. The leader took a deep breath and spoke again, his voice low. "I will teach you what you need to know, but you must understand, this is not a choice. You were brought here for a reason and you cannot turn away from it. The fate of the galaxy rests on your shoulders." Ethan felt his knees weaken, the pressure of the situation growing heavier by the second. He had never wanted anything like this. He had never asked for any of it, but it was clear that he couldn't escape. The symbol around his neck, the ancient knowledge, the power, it was all connected to him in ways he couldn't fully understand. And if he didn't learn how to control it, the galaxy would fall into chaos. As he looked at the book, the leader's words echoed in his mind. You have no choice. Ethan didn't know if he was ready for this, but he knew that whatever happened next, his life would never be the same. The leader turned toward the book, his hand hovering above it. This is where your training begins. Ethan stepped forward, his fingers trembling as he reached for the book. The moment his hand touched the cover, a strange energy surged through him, and the symbols on the walls seemed to glow brighter, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. A deep voice filled his mind, speaking in a language he couldn't understand. It was a whisper like the wind through trees, but it felt like it was coming from within him. The symbols on the book shifted, changing before his eyes, and for a brief moment Ethan felt a surge of understanding. He could see flashes of the past, ancient civilizations, long-forgotten battles, and a power so great that it could reshape the stars. The vision faded as quickly as it had come, leaving Ethan breathless and confused. He pulled his hand back from the book, his heart pounding in his chest. "What just happened?" he asked, his voice shaking. The leader's eyes met his. "You have begun your training. But there is much more to learn. The power inside you is just beginning to awaken, and you must learn to control it before it controls you." Ethan took a deep breath, his mind racing. He had no idea what he had just experienced, but it was clear that he was no longer in control of his own fate. The symbol, the book, the aliens, all of it was part of a much larger plan. And now, whether he liked it or not, he had to play his part. Ethan sat in the dark room, his mind racing as he replayed everything that had happened. He had no idea what was going on, but one thing was clear. The pendant around his neck, the symbol on it, was the key to something bigger than he could ever imagine. It wasn't just a relic from his grandfather. It was a link to an ancient power, a power that could either save or destroy everything. And somehow, Ethan was connected to it. He stood up, feeling the weight of the symbol around his neck as though it had grown heavier. He couldn't understand how he had gotten involved in all this. He was just a regular guy from Earth, thrown into this world of aliens, ancient symbols, and strange powers. He had no training, no skills, no idea how to control whatever was happening to him. And yet, everyone seemed to think he was the one who could make a difference. The leader of the alien soldiers had told him that his training was just beginning, but Ethan couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. He was still struggling to wrap his head around everything. The book he had touched earlier, the strange visions that had flooded his mind, they felt real, but how could they be? And why was it happening to him? A soft click echoed in the quiet room, and the door slid open. Ethan turned, half expecting another soldier or the leader to come in, but instead, it was someone different. A woman, taller than him, with the same glowing eyes that the soldiers had. Her skin was a dark shade of blue, almost metallic, and her movements were graceful, almost predatory. She didn't speak at first. She just stood there, watching him with a look that seemed both curious and calculating. "Are you the one?" she asked, her voice deep and smooth, but there was an edge to it. It wasn't a question, but more of a statement. Ethan wasn't sure how to respond. He had no idea what she meant. "I don't know," he said quietly. "I don't even know what's going on. I'm just trying to figure this out." The woman stepped closer, her gaze fixed on the pendant around his neck. Her eyes flickered with something Ethan couldn't read, something like recognition, but not quite. "You are the one," she said again, this time more firmly. "You carry the symbol of our ancestors. That means you are the one who must decide, the one who will choose the future of our people." Ethan took a step back, confusion flooding his mind. "I don't want to choose anything. I don't even know how to do any of this." The woman's lips curved into a small, almost sad smile. "You will learn. That is why you are here." Before Ethan could say anything more, she turned and gestured for him to follow. "Come with me. You need to see something." He hesitated, still unsure whether he could trust her, but something in her tone told him that she wasn't asking. He had no choice but to follow her. They walked through the hallways of the strange building, the same ones Ethan had walked through before, but now they seemed different. The walls pulsed with energy, the symbols glowing brighter as they passed. Ethan's mind was still spinning, trying to piece together everything that had happened, but he couldn't focus on anything for too long. The feeling that he was being watched never left him. The woman led him into a large chamber, much larger than any room he had seen before. In the center of the room was a large circular platform covered in glowing symbols. Around the edges of the platform were what looked like control panels, though they didn't look like anything Ethan recognized. The whole room seemed to hum with energy, like the air itself was alive. "This is where the knowledge is stored," the woman said, her voice echoing slightly in the large chamber. "This is where the secrets of our people have been kept for centuries. It is a place of great power, but it is also a place of great danger." Ethan looked around, his heart pounding. "What kind of power?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "What do you mean by danger?" The woman didn't answer at first. Instead, she walked over to one of the control panels and placed her hand on it. The symbols around the platform shifted, glowing brighter for a moment before dimming again. Ethan took a step closer, his curiosity getting the better of him. "This is where the weapon is hidden," she said quietly, her eyes focused on the platform. "The weapon that could destroy everything, the one that you are meant to find." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "The weapon," he whispered, "but I thought it was just a story, a legend." The woman turned to face him, her expression serious. "It was no legend. The weapon exists, and it is powerful beyond comprehension. If it falls into the wrong hands, the galaxy will burn, but if it is used wisely, it can bring peace." Ethan shook his head. "I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want any of this power. I just want to go home." She stepped closer, her eyes locked onto his. "You don't have a choice. The power is already inside you. The symbol is more than just a key. It is a bond. You are connected to the weapon, and the weapon is connected to you." Ethan took a step back, his chest tightening. "But I don't know how to control it. I don't even understand it." The woman's gaze softened slightly. "That is why we are here, to help you learn. You are not alone in this. We will guide you, but you must make the choice. You must choose what path you will walk." Ethan felt his heart racing. The weight of her words settled heavily on his shoulders. He had never asked for any of this. He had never wanted to be part of some ancient prophecy, to hold the fate of the galaxy in his hands. He just wanted to go back to his normal life. But that was no longer possible. The power was inside him now, and there was no escaping it. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "Why was I chosen?" The woman didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at the platform, her expression distant. "You were chosen because you are the one who can control the power. The others failed. They couldn't handle it, but you have the potential." Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. The others, who were they, and what had happened to them? The questions were overwhelming, but he couldn't stop them from flooding his mind. "What happened to the others?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman's expression darkened. "They tried to use the weapon for their own gain. They wanted to control it, to wield it for power. But the weapon is not meant to be controlled. It can't be. That is why they failed." Ethan swallowed hard. "So what happens now? What do I do?" She turned to face him, her eyes filled with a strange mix of sadness and determination. "Now you begin your training. You must learn how to control the power inside you, how to unlock the secrets of the symbol. But you must also understand one thing. There are those who will try to stop you, those who want the weapon for themselves. You cannot trust anyone except those who stand with you." Ethan's mind was spinning. He felt like he was trapped in a nightmare with no way out. But somehow he knew that there was no turning back now. The power was inside him, and it was calling him forward. He had to learn how to control it, to understand it, or the galaxy would suffer. He looked at the woman, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "Where do we start?" The woman's lips curved into a small smile. "We start with the first lesson, the symbol, the key." Ethan took a deep breath. He wasn't sure what he was about to face, but he knew one thing for sure: his life had changed forever. And now it was up to him to decide how the story would end. Ethan's heart raced as he stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by glowing symbols and alien technology. The weight of everything that had happened pressed down on him like a heavy stone. He had been thrown into a situation he couldn't control, and now more than ever it felt like he was trapped in a web of ancient powers and cosmic politics that he barely understood. But one thing was clear: the power inside him was real, and it was growing stronger every day. The woman, the alien who had been guiding him through this strange world, stood in front of him, her gaze steady and unwavering. Her eyes, glowing faintly with that strange light, never left him. He had learned her name was Sira, and she was a member of an ancient group tasked with protecting the knowledge and power that had been passed down through the ages. But as much as she had tried to reassure him, Ethan still wasn't sure if he could trust her. Or anyone for that matter. You must understand, Ethan, Sierra said, her voice calm but filled with urgency. The weapon is not something you can control easily. The power it holds is beyond anything you've ever imagined. And once you unlock its true potential, there is no going back. Ethan swallowed, feeling a knot form in his stomach. How do I even begin to understand all of this? He asked. His voice cracked slightly, betraying his fear. You keep telling me that I'm the one who has to make the choice, but I don't even know what that means. I don't even know how to control what's happening to me. Sierra's expression softened, though the seriousness in her eyes didn't waver. The first step is understanding the symbol. It is more than just a pendant. It is a link between you and the power that is hidden within the galaxy. The weapon is part of it, but the symbol is the key. You must unlock its true meaning, and only then can you decide what to do with the power. Ethan's fingers instinctively touched the pendant around his neck. It had been with him since his grandfather had given it to him, but it felt different now. The symbol on it, the ancient spiral, pulsed with energy as though it were alive, reacting to his touch. He could feel it deep in his bones like it was calling to him. The symbol, Ethan said slowly, his voice filled with uncertainty, is this my key to everything? Sierra nodded. Yes, the symbol was designed to unlock the weapon's true potential, but it is also a test. It will show you what you are capable of and what you are willing to become. The power is within you, but it is not something to be taken lightly. Ethan took a deep breath. He had always felt like an ordinary person, just a guy who lived a simple life, never expecting to be involved in anything bigger than his daily routine. Now, here he was, standing in the middle of an alien world with the fate of the galaxy resting on his shoulders. I don't know if I can do this, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Sierra's gaze softened and she took a step toward him. You don't have to do it alone. There are others, those who have been trained to help you, but you must first understand the power within yourself. It is not about control, Ethan, it's about choice. Ethan looked at her, his eyes filled with confusion. What do you mean, choice? You will face a decision, she explained. The power you hold can save countless lives, but it can also destroy everything. If you choose to wield it, you must understand that there are consequences. There are those who will want to use the weapon for their own gain, and they will stop at nothing to take it from you. The weight of her words settled over him like a heavy blanket. He had already seen the fear in the eyes of the soldiers when they had first encountered him. They had frozen, terrified by the symbol he wore. They had known something he didn't. Who are these people? Ethan asked. Who are they, and why do they want the weapon? Sierra's eyes darkened. There are factions, hidden in the shadows, who seek the weapon for themselves. They believe that with it, they could control the galaxy, bend entire worlds to their will. They would use its power to destroy anyone who stands in their way. And they will stop at nothing to get it. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. The idea of holding such power terrified him. And what do you want me to do? He asked. You've trained me, shown me how to unlock the power, but now I have to make a choice. What if I make the wrong one? Sierra's gaze softened again, though the sadness in her eyes was still there. There is no right or wrong, only what you believe is the best choice. You must decide whether to wield the weapon or hide it away. The future of the galaxy depends on you. You must decide if you are willing to bear the burden. The room was silent for a long moment. Ethan's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, swirling with uncertainty and fear. He wasn't ready for this. He wasn't ready to make a decision that could change everything. But deep down, he knew that there was no turning back. He had been chosen for something bigger than himself. Whether he liked it or not, the choice was his to make. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice low but steady. I can't do this alone. I need help. Sierra nodded. You will have it. There are others, people who have trained for this moment, who will stand with you, but in the end, the choice is yours. Ethan looked at her, his mind made up. Then I'll do what I have to do. Sierra's eyes gleamed with approval. You have made your first step. Now we must prepare. The next few days were a blur of training and information. Sierra introduced him to the others, members of the Ancient Order, skilled in combat and knowledge of the weapon's power. Each of them had their own expertise, and together, they helped Ethan unlock the deeper layers of the symbol. He learned how to tap into the power within himself, how to harness the energy that surged through his veins whenever he touched the pendant. The more he learned, the more he realized how dangerous the power could be. But there was still so much he didn't understand. The weapon, the factions that sought it, and the choice that lay ahead of him, it all seemed so overwhelming. Yet in the back of his mind, something told him that he was the only one who could make it right. He had the power, but with it came responsibility. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on him more than anything else. One evening, as he sat alone in his room, staring at the glowing symbols on the walls, Sierra came to him again. "It is time," she said simply. Ethan stood up, feeling the weight of the moment. "Time for what?" "Time to make your choice," she replied. "The factions have begun to move. They know that you have the symbol, that you are the key to the weapon. They will come for you, Ethan. You must decide if you will stand and fight or hide away, protecting the power until the galaxy is ready." Ethan nodded, his mind made up. "I'm ready, I'll fight." Sierra's expression softened into something that almost resembled pride. "Then let us go. The galaxy will not wait forever." With a deep breath, Ethan followed her out of the room. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. He was no longer the ordinary man he had once been. He was the key to a power that could reshape the galaxy, and whatever the cost, he would face it.